550 basis points. I don't think any bullish analyst even expected the Ndungu to be as aggressive. What are your thoughts on the central bank hike?
I think the central bank really wants to send a message that it's very keen on getting money into the currency. So essentially, it's probably a pointer to foreign investors to start looking at the currency, that the currency is actually going to strengthen going forward. I think in essence also they're pointing towards concerns with regards to inflation. But I think they're really more focusing about the currency, which could also weigh in positively on imported inflation.
Now, Barclays Capital says it remains concerned about the weak economic fundamentals, particularly with regards to deterioration in the balance of payments account. This coupled with global uncertainties and risk aversion, they see that we could even have further rate hikes if fundamentals don't improve. What are your thoughts?
No. Actually, I think the fundamentals of the Kenyan economy remain very sound. And in fact, it's because of the capacity that is being built up in the Kenyan economy that we are seeing, the balance of payment being challenged so much. Essentially, we are seeing companies expanding very significantly, and it's because of genuine shortage of demand. It's not like they're expanding and that capacity is not being utilized. So I think the fundamentals of the economy remain very sound. It's just managing the balance of payment and getting the public-private partnerships to really work with these capital investments.
And of course, the IMF's dispersal of that extra $250 million to top up those foreign currency reserves will also help with that balance of payment issue. Just what were your key takeouts from the IMF report? Of course, they slashed the economic growth forecast for 2011, but as you say, still the economy is still growing. 5% is still a good enough number.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, they are looking at a figure of 5%. Even if they fall short and we hit a target of, say, 4%, 4% is still a very good number, although, in terms of the Vision 2030 target of 10%, obviously that's falling short. But in absolute terms, 4% growth is still quite decent. I think going forward, we're still going to see that growth coming forward. Obviously, that's going to take a bit of time to really reach the target of 10%. So essentially, we remain cautiously optimistic, but the investors have to choose very carefully which sectors they actually need to invest.
Let's talk about the investment climate at this point in time. Which of those sectors do you see performing well for the next year, 18 months out, as we've got the election coming up and a lot of caution around how that might play out in the markets?
I think if you're trying to connect the higher increase in rates with the performance of the market, I think that's going to weigh down the market maybe in the near term. But if you're looking at the banks specifically, we might see margin expansion there. So we remain quite positive on the banking stocks, particularly Kenya Commercial Bank and Equity Bank.
How do you see the markets digesting this just 550 basis point hike today?
It really depends on what position somebody takes. If you're a foreign investor, you might see this as a signal that the currency is going to strengthen. So over and above your return on the stock market, you also get a gain on the foreign exchange side. Obviously, it depends on how quickly somebody is able to respond on that. But in the near term, I think that's negative for the stock market, especially if people start shifting their focus into debt.
Now we see the shilling has really managed to gain quite a lot of ground. It's trading even more than $10 off its all-time high of 107 against the greenback. We've got Kenya Airways coming out with first half numbers tomorrow. The shilling has been depressed for the majority of the year. First half numbers to September, and this company is set to benefit from a weaker shilling. What type of numbers do you see coming through from KQ?
We expect a very strong performance from the airline. It could be anything over 40% in terms of growth, conservatively, just from our view of the operating numbers that they released. And that's going to be a pointer with regards to the upcoming rights issue. So we remain quite bullish on the counter.
Domestically, it was quite interesting to note that Kenya Airways are growing its domestic capacity even though competition has increased. So it shows that there's still sufficient space for all the small carriers as well as larger carriers like Kenya Airways in the region.
Yeah, certainly, and they play in some cases actually a complementary role where you know the smaller airlines fly to the smaller destinations, building up in the hubs, and then Kenya Airways flying to the bigger destinations. You know, it's only in cases where they are flying wing to wing that you know Kenya Airways tends to get competition from the smaller airlines. But in essence, Kenya Airways has quite a competitive advantage, especially with regards to its African network.
Now, of course, it has the 10-year plan. It wants to fly to every major city in Africa in the next 10 years. It's building capacity. It's been buying a lot of aircraft to do that. It's got this upcoming rights issue. The stock is some 50% down for 2011. Is this a good time to be buying into the stock? And at what point in time are you going to start seeing the increased capacity and increased earnings from the airline reflected in the counter?
I think already we are starting to see that coming through, and you know the results tomorrow are going to be a pointer, I believe. So it's just a matter of time. I think investors are a bit concerned with the level of dilution. So when they start seeing the numbers coming through, they might have a little bit of comfort as to the level of dilution. Also, the amount that is going to be raised, I mean, we're not really sure exactly how much is going to be raised because it's pegged to the exchange rate. So, you know, that amount, once it's raised, the investors will have confidence that then they can leverage, you know, to be able to get more aircrafts. So I think that uncertainty has really weighed down on the stock this year.
But what is your investment horizon then? When do you start seeing the stock really appreciating and reflecting the earnings growth?
I think the first 1 year is going to be a bit challenging, but beyond that, we are really going to start seeing the capacity that they've put in starting to trickle down to the bottom line. And already the stock has come off quite significantly, so investors would be getting in at a good base.